This is the Cholo News Report for Friday 09 February 2018. The United States government runs out of funding for the second time this year, prompting another government shutdown. The text of the deal, stretching more than 600 pages, was released late Wednesday night, revealing provisions large and small that would go far beyond the basic budget numbers. Critically, it would also keep the government funded for another 6 weeks, giving lawmakers time to put together a long-term spending bill that would stretch through the rest of the fiscal year, which ends September 30th. The White House Office of Management and Budget instructed federal agencies to prepare for a possible lapse in funding, a spokeswoman said Thursday night. Syria government and Russian government say that the United States military presence in Syria is illegal. The United States now has overall control of about a quarter of the Syrian territory. On January 17, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson outlined a range of U.S. policy goals in the Syrian conflict, including an enduring defeat of ISIS and al-Qaeda. With no sign of such a peace deal in sight, the U.S. military is now committed to a potentially indefinite presence in Syria that is opposed by all of the main players in the country. The Syrian government said it captured the eastern city of Deir al-Zor, while the Iraqi military said its forces entered the border town of Qam. Germany's trade surplus shrank in 2017, for the first time since 2009, reflecting strong domestic demand. To secure a fourth term as Chancellor, Merkel on Wednesday handed her Social Democrat coalition partners control of the finance ministry, giving them license to spend a record budget surplus, and embracing their demands for European reform. The agreed hike in additional state spending is likely to boost domestic demand even further and help reduce the still large trade surplus in coming years. After a meeting with top Japanese business and British government executives in 10 Downing Street, Japan's ambassador to Britain warns that companies may discontinue their UK operations if a Brexit without a new trade deal makes them unprofitable. This is all high stakes that all of us, I think, need to keep in mind, the ambassador said, speaking outside No 10 following the meeting attended by Prime Minister Theresa May and International Trade Secretary Liam Fox. When Japanese business were first lured to Britain 30 years ago, one of the key attractions was free trade access to European markets, something which could be under threat from Brexit. A senior European External Action Service official says that the European Union, in order to protect its companies doing business with Iran, could implement blocking regulations based on a legal framework set up in 1996 for EU trade with Cuba, should the United States pull out of the 2015 nuclear deal and restore its sanctions. While European nations have been adamant that they would stick to the deal, should Washington pull out, Europe would need to find ways to limit any impact from possible US sanctions to ensure their firms continue to do business with Tehran. The regulations were agreed in 1996 as a countermeasure to the US extraterritorial economic sanctions against Cuba, which EU governments argued benefited US foreign policy interests at the expense of European sovereignty. The Gambia formally rejoins the Commonwealth 5 years after its former president Yahya Jammeh withdrew the West African country, calling it a neo-colonial institution. Though its sandy beaches have made it a popular destination for seeking European tourists, under Jammeh Gambia also garnered a reputation as a repressive state where journalists and political opponents were jailed, tortured and even murdered.